Hi guys at Green Bay, it's Kevin at Brefco Builders back with you today out on a job site in a rural, kind of remote area. A job site like this is kind of tricky. We don't want people coming here, so we don't tend to plow the snow very often. If you got called to a natural gas smell here, some type of activity where they initiated a fire department or a rescue squad call, typically this is what you're going to come up onto on a job site that has been put on hold. Now what we have here is the excavation is complete, the foundation is poured, and the floor deck has been installed on this home just for protection against the winter elements. Things you'll also find, we're heating this inside, and we're going to take a little bit deeper look into that just in a few minutes here. But if you're arriving here first on in, imagine what you're going to have to go through when you first come off the pumper. We've got a drift about 3.5 feet tall here. There's drift snow all over this place, and it's just for job site safety for yourselves. There's things that are buried in this snow. We do our best in the industry to clean up every day. I can't guarantee you that everything has been caught. There could be studs laying around with nails exposed, stuff that you just were drifted over. So when you're coming off the rig and you got your $400 pair of globes on, just pay attention. There's things that could be laying in here. They're going to do some damage to your turnout gear, your hose jackets, even your body if you fell. The ground is typically not perfect. You're going to have big stones. You're going to have things that are sharp, objects that are buried in this type of environment. Other things that I hope you noticed when you came in, if you take a look, we're right next to a high pressure gas line manufacturing plant. This is a public service substation for natural gas. For Homeland Security, I'm not going to say where we are, but I can tell you that is a substation that feeds a lot of places that grow cherries in the area. So this is the main lines that feed that area that grows a lot of cherries. So we'll be back with you in a short time and show you a little bit further on this particular job site, what we would do when we approach to check our heaters and to check our job site out. So thank you, we'll be with you in a minute. Okay guys, at first glance you notice a few things. We're here up on the floor deck of the home that we're about to construct when things take back off. A couple tools I always take with me just for my job. A wrench, because I turn the gas main off. I'm heating this basement, and there's a reason why I want to show you that. It's kind of important. And I always just bring a hammer for some of my bracing and materials I use to support my tarps. So I'm going to set these down a second. Wanted to talk to you about this floor deck. Now, if you come to this situation, there's things you should probably be aware of. I'm a seasoned veteran of the industry of construction. This is my job site. I know how this is constructed, I know what it can support, and I know where the holes are. So if you're in this event and you come up to a job site, and maybe there is a builder like myself here on site, and I'm walking around this deck, no problem, everything seems great, it's not always monkey see, monkey do. You should ask some questions before you even attempt to stand on this deck. There could be no supports in here. You wouldn't know at this point. I would. However, I'm comfortable walking here. Doesn't mean that I can accept 6 or 8 guys up here at the same time. Other things, if you're freelancers, get out of the habit of it. Always ask before you do anything around a site like this, simply because I can walk fine here. When I get right into this corner, this is a little bit different. This is where the staircase goes, and I have it sheeted, but it's really not secure. So if 3 or 4 of us went and jumped on that, I guarantee we're going down. We're going into that foundation, and when we take a video down there, you're going to realize it's not the best environment to be in, but just always ask the questions before you would jump up on this deck. You might be a seasoned veteran, you might be a weekend warrior, and you know everything about construction. But coming to this site with no knowledge of what's really happening here, I would advise you, try not to walk on this deck. If you do, you should have a ladder for support, everything else, because there's components in this home that I'm about to show you that are not even in place at this point. I'm pretty comfortable because of my experience and knowledge in the industry, but it doesn't mean that you should be. So we're gonna go down and take a video as we keep going here. Before I actually get down into that foundation, this is a walkout elevation. So I'm just merely gonna walk around the home and come from the backside into a tarp door that I have. But the first thing that I'm always gonna do is come up check on my gas meter location. It looks like we had some pretty good drift snow last night. First thing I'm going to do is clear some snow away from this, just so that I get my ventilation clear, so the meter base is actually working and doing what it properly should. God, you just gotta love winter. Okay, my valves are exposed at this point. First thing I'm gonna do, shut my gas off. You know what I've just done, I turned the gas off. You see what's going on here. I have a 3/4 inch feeder hose into this foundation. It's going down and feeding a recirculating heater. The reason I want to shut it off, and before I enter this building, I'm going to open up my tarps and I'm going to ventilate this before even I go in. And it's something I recommend you do with your gas meters. Do some environmental or gas sensing checks here, just to make sure you're in good breathable quality air. And we'll be back with you very shortly. Yeah, hey guys, see, we're just navigating down to the walkout portion of this job site. And look at what we're dealing with. And you know, it's Wisconsin, it's winter. We're kind of in a remote area, but just look at the drifts. Now going back to the point where, hey, is something buried here? We're literally at this point, there's probably 4.5 feet of snow. A lot of things are on job sites. It isn't typical, but it could happen. Maybe there's a steel jack post and they got the nice square plates on the end. Then we'll tear your globe boots, your whatever boots you're wearing. Sure, your steel shanks are going to hold up, but you're going to rip your jacketing of them very easily. So navigate carefully. If you see a walk pattern, it's usually probably pretty safe if a builder or somebody was accessing this. Kind of stick to those areas if you can. So we'll be back inside in a second and we'll go over our interior aspect of this foundation. Okay guys, we're inside the foundation that we just arrived on today. A few things I'll point out immediately while we're down here. These are TJI's wood I-joist trusses. It's something that everybody seems to have a big concern about in the industry, and I understand that as well. Things about this foundation that are different than you've seen in the other videos of a no-step. This is just a traditional style home. The floor system is resting on top of the concrete wall, so just some recognizable differences. The biggest aspect I wanted to talk about here today was the fact that it's a foundation on a job that's been, we've been asked to slow this job site down and hold off for a short time. And we've done that. The builder's responsibility in this case is to actually keep this foundation heated and to prevent damage from frost or any type of damage at all. From the builder's side of things, it may fall on our insurance for neglect if we were to leave this thing. So we do a pretty good job of monitoring our job sites. We keep a recirculating heater going, and typically when you get into these situations, if somebody's doing this, a lot of people will have fans. I have a fan here, only one. In some instances, I'll have multiple fans. Sometimes I wire them up and I hang them from the ceilings, blowing the heat in a downward direction. In this case, I didn't need to do that, simply because of the size of my furnace and the size of this foundation. So that's where we're at. The big importance of turning that gas off when you come into a foundation like this is simply these, they look like torpedo heaters. They have all sorts of industry names, Ready Heaters, Mr. Heater. This is particularly an LB White furnace. This one actually is about, I would say 25 to 30 years old. It runs on natural gas, and all it is a recycling heater. Important aspects about this are, if you come here and take a look, the way these things actually operate, they're a built-in thermostat into these. And everybody knows heat rises, and kind of interesting, the thermostat's at the lowest point in this basement that it could actually be. So if I set this at, for example, 70 degrees, you can imagine what the air temperature is actually getting to before it ever hits the earth at the level of this thermostat at 70 degrees. At times I would imagine we're pushing 200 degrees on some of these materials. It's just the nature of the beast. So in some occasions you'll see builders actually chain these up to the rafters, and they're actually holding that up. The reason being is to keep that thermostat up at a higher level to get a little bit better control. But if you read some of the warnings on your furnaces, that's not advised. They're supposed to be on a level platform, and the way we're directing them, we don't want to put that hot blast of heat on any of our wood structural members, or really any of the flammables in this situation anyway. But I want you to be aware of that, because I'm religious when it comes to putting in my gas hose. I use pipe dope, I use soaps to look for leaks. I'm really sensitive about that. I can't say that everybody in the industry is. I can't say that everybody uses this type of setup. I've had heating contractors come and set a temporary residential furnace in a situation like this. But for the most part, in this particular instance, this was the best choice for this job site. But could be some disadvantages as far as gas leaks. I'm religious about what I do. I don't know if everybody else in the industry does it. I'm pretty secure that my work is well done and tested. However, I can't say that something doesn't happen here through the night where a hole gets into this hose and it creates a slight leak. And I can't guarantee that my joint doesn't develop a leak overnight as well. The interesting, sad part about that is we could actually be filling up this foundation with natural gas with a furnace of this nature. So even if it's burning and I had a leak, you could be building up some natural gas fumes. The sad part is when that thermostat does engage, this furnace turns off. If I still have a natural gas leak, when this thing goes to fire itself back up, it's self-firing, you can imagine a slight explosion, anything of that nature. That's why I turn the gas valves off before I enter, and I do my ventilations just to make sure that that air is clean so I can breathe. Because if this environment gets really nasty, if we don't open it up and let it breathe out, your eyes will be burning. I would imagine it's full of carbon monoxide and who knows what else, but some really nasty stuff. So ventilation we always check our gas lines, but for your aspect, I would recommend you do the same, and you have a little bit more professional equipment for testing gases, use it, because it would be critical here. Now if you come to the front of this heater, I'm going to actually fire this up, and if you focus down in this area, now imagine if you had a natural gas leak and you see what's happening in here. I don't know if you can see the little blue arcing. That's actually the igniter for this type of furnace. So yes, it's live, it could happen. Sometimes you'll see these things actually chained up from ceiling rafters right at sea level. And in sea level, I mean right at your eyes. So if you're a curious firefighter and you're wondering, let's take a look at this, and you go stick your head in the end of it, these things can ignite on their own. They're thermostat set. It could go off, it could probably do some real good damage and take your eyebrows off at the same time. So other things you're going to find in a foundation like this great big pile of straw. Now before it was enclosed and we could do any heating in here, we protect our footings, anything that could be impacted by frost with straw, and it works really well. When it comes into that same drift you've seen outside was actually inside this building. With these type of heaters, we can get it as hot as Iraq in here or more. Believe me, we melt snow fast. This particular unit is a 300,000 BTU furnace. We melted about 3.5 feet of snow out of this foundation in a day and a half. At that point, there's still some ice, other water that goes into this straw. So we melt out an area where there's no ice left. Then we actually fork all this straw back up onto a pile. Now it's awaiting plumbing going into this foundation, and then the concrete floor being poured. And that typically is the concrete contractor's job. They remove all of this straw. And the reason it's still in here, you may think it's a fire risk. I'm pretty responsible the way I aim my heaters. And I do want to keep it here simply in case something changes on this particular job and I have to remove my heater. We can still utilize the straw and cover the footings back up to protect the building. So I think that's pretty much all we have today. But feel free, you can take a little look around here. It's your standard wood eye trusses, just in concrete with a foundation with no concrete in it. The only plumbing that came in was actual sewer and water from the city laterals coming in. But this is at a standstill, this job, and these are just the responsibilities that we have to take as a builder to maintain it. One thing I would like to point out, and we talked about it earlier, remember we talked about this looks safe. The monkey see, monkey do theory. I was up walking around on this floor deck without a concern, simply because up in this area is where my staircase comes down, and that's the area I was talking about. You can see it's secured different. It's fastened so it doesn't slip apart so easily, but I can't guarantee that all builders do that same thing. And in a lot of cases, without a walkout foundation, this is where we would actually have a ladder to enter this foundation. But it's a tricky area, and being that it's under a tarp, you don't even know it exists. So my theory would always be, ask the builder or somebody who's on the site. If there's nobody here on the site, don't risk it. There's nothing in this foundation worth more than you. So just things that you should know. Another thing, we talked about some of the structural stability that may not even be in play yet. Now there is a lot of it in play here holding this up, but here's a prime example. This thing is not even attached yet. And you may say, well, oh, that's crude or shoddy craftsmanship, and here's my answer. This home isn't near done yet. We build homes like in layers. This has no structural integrity at this point. It will once we start to add load to the building. That's why it's on a big bearing footing. But you can see, we walked on the deck. This isn't attached to anything because we didn't plumb that wall yet. And on this side of the foundation, something I would like to point out, at the time that we were actually pouring this, weather started to become a critical issue at a rapid rate. There's another footing that has to be installed here. Another load-bearing footing with a wall. Now, load-bearing or structural walls are what hold this building up. At this point, there's not enough weight to worry about. But I just walked on a floor deck that's missing some of the important factors. Now, with my weight class, I'm not worried. In fact, you could probably get a few guys up there, but I'm going to strongly recommend stay off of it. Like I said, there's nothing down here worth more than you. So just so you're aware of that. But as this home develops and continues on, this footing will be poured in with the floor pour, and there's going to be a wall that actually goes up in this region, and it is a structural component of the home. So just don't immediately think that, oh, everything's in play, everything's good, because the fact is, there's probably about 60% of the things that are required in this home that are in play at this point. And it will change as things develop, but just so you know that, you don't come up to a job site assuming, come up here asking. You've noticed out on the job site from the earlier video, there's construction trailers, there's dumpster companies, there's toilet companies here. If you're unsure of who the builder is, I would always recommend initiate with whoever's phone numbers are on that builder's trailer. If you don't have a good information on landowners, anything of the sort, if there's equipment or trailers here, call those phone numbers. Even if you can't initially get a hold of that home builder who's going to give you a whole a library of information about that particular job site, and if they're out of state or something, subcontractors we've used, our dumpster suppliers, our toilet companies, we're actually friends with these people. We've done this for years. We have good relationships. So even if you were to call Jim's Johns, for example, he would have some information about how to get a hold of me or about this job site, as well as Fox Shore Disposal with the dumpsters. My construction company, my smaller trailer is actually up here on the job site. Call those numbers. Get the people that are involved in this project activated, because it could save a life and give you a lot less headaches. And the truth is that builder or whoever's working for the builder, working with the heating aspect of this, is going to have to get involved anyway. So just so you're aware of that, don't be afraid to initiate with the phone numbers on these pieces of equipment, dumpsters, toilets. Get people activated, and the chance of hitting your builder are going to be maybe potentially a lot better. So that's all I have for today for you. Thank you very much, and stay safe.